sort of new thing, different take. We're going to talk about the one big fixture, at least the one big result that we thought came through from the Premier League. Manchester City versus Leeds is yet to take place, so we don't know if there is an upset around the corner there. But the result that we wanted to really talk about was that Brentford versus Tottenham result. 2-2 again. Spurs having to come back yet again this season after having gone down to two early goals by Brentford. Every other team in that sort of top six, top seven echelon has won their game so far. So Spurs were the biggest losers as of this point in time. So that goes as our result to really talk about. And I was bullish when the season started that Spurs will easily crack in the top four, just given Conte's performances in the past and his exploits in the past. And in all honesty, they are still fourth in the league. But a lot of people are trying to turn the corner on this Spurs team because a lot of people are trying to accept the fact that they have been getting the results, but not necessarily putting in the performances to deserve those points. So what's your take on that? Like, why is the project not working? They seem to have made
There's
all
a
the right
clown
moves.
show in their defense. There's a clown show happening in their defense. And the leader of the pack seems to be Eric Dier, who should not be playing for a Premier League side. Definitely not a side that aims top four, top six, or top eight. Eric Dier, at best, is a top 20 Premier League defender. I mean, he could start for any other team in the Premier League apart from the top 12 or top 10. He's definitely not fit for that level of responsibility. And yesterday did prove that. And Conte, I don't know what he's doing right now with how he's setting up his team.
Mhm.
Why is a team like Tottenham waiting on Brentford to play it out and then counterattack? Why do you not have your own game style imposed on them? I do believe this was an away game for Tottenham,
Yeah.
so maybe there might be more restrictions on playing out on their own style. But this can't really be World Cup fatigue or something else that's affecting Spurs because there were players across teams playing for the World Cup. It's not as if the entire Spurs 11 was playing the World Cup.
I mean, they only had the one finalist in the competition who was their goalkeeper. The other players did return back sooner. Harry Kane, one of the players who went deepest in the competition, started as well. So, yeah, you definitely can't blame it on World Cup fatigue. More importantly, Kulusevski was back for them, who pretty much has been their sort of sole creator. Perisic has delivered in patches, but has not been quite the player that people may have thought he was going to be, that maybe Conte thought he was going to be either. Um, yeah, you're right in that I don't get this sort of this sit back and soak up the pressure mentality against a team who they should arguably be way better off against and be intimidating for the most part as well. But Brentford looked so confident throughout that entire game.
Way too confident.
Yeah, they were so good and they were so. I mean, even the goals they conceded were quality goals, right? They're not lapses of judgment. Spurs did really come out and really try to get their head in and really try and get those goals scored for themselves. Um, so they have the quality. The problem is just I don't know where this lack of composure comes. It's almost as if going into the second half, eventually when Conte says, okay, just go out and attack, and the Spurs players are almost allowed to express themselves out of the Conte system, is when they end up performing, because that's when their performances really show up. As long as they're in that Conte mold, they're conceding, they're lagging behind, they're not being able to play. But the moment Conte is like, okay, let's just throw everything but the kitchen sink, that's when the team actually comes alive. That's when they actually go ahead and make their comeback. So maybe, maybe
I
that's the
think
problem.
this is also having not having a number 10 issue, not having a central creator. Look at how Spurs are set up now. Who is their creator? Is it Harry Kane? Maybe. Is it Hyunmin Song? Maybe. Is it Kulusevski? Maybe. There's no one central figure who is the fulcrum of creating attacks or starting some fantastic moves to set up an attack. It's always just rotating the ball somewhere and probably trying to pass it to Harry Kane, who will feed it to their runners. How long is that system going to work for a side like Spurs? I'm not sure. Because hey, if you want to be a big side, you have to play like a big side. You can't really have the underdog mentality and counter-attack mentality all the time. It's not that that hasn't ever yielded results, but a top side needs to impose their style of play on the game, not have it the other way around, and then talk about fixture congestion, comebacks, mentality, team spirit, blah 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 blah. Antonio Conte, for all his complaints, has not really put out an identity apart from him trying to play the 3-5-2 system or the 5-3-2 system. Is it too much rigidity? Is it the lack of willingness to experiment a different
I
form?
mean, part of it is they just don't have a player who can fill that role, right? They just don't. They had Lo Celso who could have played that sort of part for them, but that's really the only name that comes to mind. It's and you're right. In part of it, like Conte is to blame for that because he chose what players to bring through the club and which players not to. I mean, they possibly could have signed a Christian Eriksen who would have made that system just flourish, I would assume, in playing
Easy
the
enough.
way he does. But it was Conte's choice to not do that, to rely on his fullbacks. But he doesn't have quality fullbacks in this team. Jed Spence, a Tottenham player, not a Conte player, brought in, still sitting on the sidelines, not really getting a lot of action there. And he can. I think we're looking at another complaint riddled January transfer window where he's going to talk about needing more quality signings, needing more quality transfers, which feels like sort of a shallow argument because on the back of things, when you look at it, Christian Romero comes back a World Cup winner. I didn't think much of him in the Conte system, but that guy was a beast for Argentina. Hugo Lloris, we all know he's already a World Cup winner as well. Harry Kane helms a really good England squad. Højbjerg, part of a very successful Danish team as well. Perisic with Croatia again went to another World Cup semi-finals. These are quality players that are just not performing for whatever reason. And when you have a bunch of good players not performing to their optimum, you have to point fingers at the manager, I feel like. Big questions to be asked at Spurs. At this rate, I see them easily slipping out of that top four, especially with Manchester United and Liverpool picking up form again, and I think those guys are really going to gun for that fourth spot. So yeah, lots of troubles, lots of worries in the future for Spurs. But yeah, let us know what you guys think. What's going wrong with Spurs? Is it Conte's fault? Is it the system's fault? Do they just need more time, or do they need another player to fit in and fix that situation? Let us know down in the comments below. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe.